Police Minister Bheki Cele has published the crime stats for the first quarter of this year. There is a significant increase in cases reported across several crime categories. These statistics indicate South Africa incidents of violent crime have risen, with just under 6,000 people murdered in the country. This is between April and June this year. And to take us through these stats and what they mean for South Africa, we are joined by the South African Police Union National Spokesperson Lesiba Thobakgale, Police Ministry Spokesperson Lirandzu Themba, and on the line we have Steyn, who's a spokesperson for the Honeydew Community Policing Forum. Good evening to you all, and thank you so much for your time this evening. I would like to begin with you, Michael, because you are on the ground, and when we look at the crime stats, your area is number one when it comes to the list of police stations, the top 30 police stations where serious crimes were reported, and this includes robberies as well. Talk to us then about the crime situation in your area.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think firstly, as the Public Relations Officer for Honeydew CPF, I think it's important to understand that the Honeydew precinct covers a large area, which also includes areas like Weltevreden Park, Cosmo City, Randpark Ridge and Zandspruit. It might be the case that Honeydew precinct is number one on two of the stats, but we also like to make note that compared to the cases we saw last year, this year we saw a 17.4% reduction in these cases. If we look at the overall combined stats released today, we can see a massive improvement across the board on all the categories that's been published.
And what would you attribute this, this reduction to?
I definitely think it's the forces that's on the ground. We see a lot more police visibility, a lot more forces. Forces gets allocated to the areas where we experience these rises in crime. So I definitely think that is one of the contributing factors.
And I'd like to bring in then Lesiba and Lirandzu into this conversation. Lesiba, I'll begin with you. What was your reaction when we were taken through the crime stats this afternoon?
Our reaction as SAPU, it is clear that there is nothing that is happening in the SAPs related to crime, because there is what we call the CPAs, which are the crime pattern analysis, and the CTAs, which are the crime threat analysis, which are done daily, where the police, they are able to look and see how are we going, how well are we doing, or how bad are we doing. So time and again, when we compare to the last quarter, where the minister, released the crime statistics, it really showed that there are a lot of areas that needs improvement. But today, again, we see such a huge increase in terms of the numbers of very serious crimes that are occurring within the country. Our gripe is here to say, when you look at the statistics, you need to analyze and assess yourself so that you can know what are the right strategies that needs to be put in place. We are sitting here where we have the police minister and the national commissioner, who are the two bulls that are fighting. And whereas crime down there, it is escalating. Remember, criminals are not going on break. Criminals, they don't have time for lockdown. But criminals, they are working day and night. And who's taking the brunt? Our communities, our citizens are the ones who are taking the brunt at the end of the day. So we are saying as SAPU that the fight between the Minister of Police and the National Commissioner needs to come to an end. The President of the Republic of South Africa needs to come in between and ensure that there is an action that is taken so that crime can be sorted out within this country in order to maintain peace and stability in terms of what SAPS is supposed to do. And further to that, when we look at crime intelligence, the role that crime intelligence is supposed to play in terms of crime. Crime intelligence, they are supposed to be proactive. They are supposed to know what is happening when. But when we speak today, we've got a divisional commissioner who is acting as a divisional commissioner for crime intelligence. Crime intelligence, you cannot have somebody acting there. You need to have somebody who is appointed who can ensure that they implement strategies. Because we know that there is a tendency in SAPS, when somebody is acting, they cannot indeed have their nails in, they cannot indeed implement strategies that are going to assist going further. And crime intelligence has always been like that, has always been failing, has always been captured even from the time of Richard Mdluli. So those issues, we believe as a union that they need to be sorted out in order to ensure that our citizens are safer. When you look at the high rate of murder, it clearly shows you that indeed people are losing their lives, and the police leadership, they are supposed to come in and ensure that there are strategies, not only to release crime stats and say, this is how we look, this is how we look, but in terms of what you see, you need to say, this is what I'm going to do. We've got restructuring that we have signed an agreement in 2020, whereby we are channeling resources from the national offices or from the top going down, because crime and policing, it is happening at the ground level. So those are some of the issues that we are very concerned to say. As we speak today, that restructuring has not been implemented. The Minister of Police is holding it at ransom. And when we look at that, it affects in terms of the channeling of those physical resources and the human capital thereof to the ground. And we are saying, as soon as restructuring is implemented, we know that there will be more boots on the ground where policing is really happening. Our members would be able to get promoted, because now we will be knowing who is matched and placed where. All of those things, they are on hold. And now our members are without leadership, because everyone is looking at who is going. Is it the minister? Is it the national commissioner who will leave? And we are saying that to the president, that as we have written to the office of the president, he needs to intervene in dispute between the minister and the national commissioner, because South Africans are supposed to be prioritized.
Lesiba, I'm going to ask just to pause there, because I'd like to bring in Lirandzu into this conversation. She's been listening to what you have been saying. Quite a mouthful there. Lirandzu, just one question to the South African Police Union about their reaction to the crime stats tonight. I'm sure you were listening to that very lengthy response of a union that does not appear to have confidence that the SAPS is in the right direction.
Yeah, SAPU really raises valid points, actually, Bongiwe. But I have to correct one, I think, myth that he has put across, which is that we should be blaming the fight, as he puts it, between the National Commissioner and the Police Minister. I, as well as the Minister of Police, have on several occasions have put it on record that there is no such fight. There may be differ of opinions, and this happens with all of our colleagues at all times. This, however, does not affect the working relationship that the police commissioner as well as the minister have. With that said, we cannot blame these difference of opinions to the numbers that we're seeing today. So I do want to get that clarity. But, SAPU does raise valid points, especially around the acting positions in crime intelligence, but overall the morale of the SAPS and the police members that are on the ground. But I think it'll be very foolish of us, Bongiwe, to just blame one thing and not actually look at some of the problems that are plaguing the SAPS. Let me just take you to some of the examples that were quoted by the minister and the national commissioner when releasing these various stats. The minister was at pains to explain about the comparative period that we find ourselves in, essentially saying that we are comparing the uncomparable, meaning that we are comparing a period where the country was on lockdown, where only essential work was permitted, Bongiwe, where essentially all of us were at home, including, of course, the criminals themselves. This is the very reason why we were seeing unprecedented low numbers of crime. Now we are comparing that period to a period now where, we were under lockdown level 3, 2, and 1. Essentially, we're basically comparing apples and bananas, and we're not able to do that. And if we are doing that, that is the reason why then we have these double-digit increases. But with that said, Bongiwe, we have to look at some of the effects of policing, on what has affected policing, essentially. We know that we have not been able to recruit new police members. We're supposed to have recruited last year 7,000 new recruits. That hasn't happened because of COVID-19. Even this year, Bongiwe, we have not done so, meaning 14,000 officers, that potential officers, have not joined the service. But we've mitigated this by, calling on partnerships, especially around reservists coming on board, being trained so that they can assist and beef up the numbers that we are facing right now. But at the same time, we also and SAPU is very much aware of attrition. People are leaving the service. For the first time, government has actually allowed public servants to leave the police service at the age of 55. This means that there are more people that have left, Bongiwe, and there are not many people are coming in because of the reasons that I've stated above. But more than anything, what is hampering on police is visibility, and SAPU also concedes that the more people, the more police officers we have on the ground, we are definitely going to see the crime being impacted as it should.
Lirandzu, I wonder what the issue then to filling these posts is. Is it simply budgetary constraints, or is there more to this? Because it does appear as if Lesiba is alluding to the fact that there's not enough willingness on the side of those at the helm to fill these positions.
I wouldn't call it that, Bongiwe. I mean, of course, as I've mentioned, there is a program a project to fill in the most crucial posts, actually, which are the boots on the ground. Of course, there is a need to fill in the position of the general that is going to be heading the CI department or the division. We do have an acting division commissioner. We know that. But at the same time, I don't think that there is necessarily a dragging of feet when it comes to that. Should it be happening faster? Of course. But at the same time, we also are conceding that there are budgetary constraints, but we're not going to blame one thing because of that. We know that 3 billion rand has been cut from the SAPS budget, but this is not unique to the South African Police Service. This has been done across the board with all departments. We know that we'll still be bleeding even more with a projected 11 billion rand that will be cut, Bongiwe. But we're not going to sit back and say these are the reasons why these positions have not been fulfilled or been filled. There is definitely political will from the police ministry's perspective and view that these, and he has been pushing for these positions to be filled. We really do hope and we are confident that they are going to be filled, and when they are filled, we are going to be seeing a really solid sort of rather leadership, as SAPU has really called for, which is not a secret. It is something that is needed in various divisions within the SAPS.
All right, I'm going to ask everyone to pause there as we continue with this conversation. And in just a moment, Michael, I'd like to bring you back into this conversation when we then look at the response time and the cooperation in your community between police and the residents. Our conversation as we look at the deeper issue of the crime statistics. We've got with us South African Police Union National Spokesperson Lesiba Thobakgale, Police Ministry Spokesperson Lirandzu Themba, and on the line we have Michael Steyn, who is the spokesperson for Honeydew Community Policing Forum. Michael, I'd like to bring you back into this conversation. Let's look at the response time, when police are called to areas to respond to certain incidents, and also the cooperation then that, might be there. Is it there at all? Do you find that police are working with that community seamlessly?
Yep, thank you, Bongi. I think one of the important things is one of the functions of the CPF is to assist in building the confidence between SAPS and the residents. We've always seen a great working relationship between all members and residents, and will continue to improve on already strong foundation. The important thing is working together as one community, which is we from the CPF point of view believe is done. I think in general we do have a good response time from our precincts. However, it also depends on the day to day and how busy the members are at any given time. I must add that on most of the situations where serious crimes are occurring and quick response times are needed, we've got the backup. SAPs do get there very quickly, and it's always a positive feeling when we do get that back up that quickly.
It does sound like things are really working in that community, Michael, as you say. Let's then look at the issue of resources, because we know that police station, as you alluded to a little earlier on, covers quite a large area. Do you get a sense that the members are coping?
You know, I think it's, once again, it's a day-to-day situation that they are dealing with. I think they are dealing quite well with the situation. It's important to take note that in all communities there is constant growth, and it's like the spokesperson said, there's constant growth in these communities, and it's not always possible to grow the resources at the same rate. For the general policing, we are somewhat adequately resourced, but I believe we are also reliant on special task teams like the TRT and POPs when the need arises. I think I must also add that one of the things which I believe is going to make a change for the Honeydew precinct is the soon-to-be opening of the Cosmo police station. That is definitely going to make quite a bit of changes within our area, as that police station will then function as an independent police station looking after Cosmo City as well as Zandspruit.
And Lesiba, when we look at the issue of policing, we were speaking to various crime experts and who are saying that crime is simply an issue that is not only the police's issue to deal with. There's a lot that goes into this, and there now appears to be a need for various ministries to come on board. The Ministry, for example, of Employment and Labour, because that also does have an impact on the crime stats. The Ministry of Social Development may need to be in the room when the crime stats are being presented, because some of these socio-economic challenges are also then contributing to crime. Would that work?
That is true. We fully agree with that notion, because when we were dealing with the establishment of specialized unit within the SAPs, we brought that position there by SPC. That is where we even proposed to say we need to have a unit that is specifically dealing with gender-based violence, only concentrating on those type of cases. And we strongly believe with that, we also propose that we need to have social workers that come, into play, so they can play their role where there is a domestic violence and issues like that, where we can even have the Department of Health to come and assist in accordance. So we strongly believe that indeed, if policing is not only left to police alone or to the police department alone, but there are other role players that are coming into play, it would really assist us, because other socio-economic issues are, some of them, they also contribute to what's, these high crime numbers that we happen to have. But also, it is also good that we pointed out clearly to say it is our strong belief that even if we can have the cooperation and so on of other departments that will come in, if there is no political will within the police management and also the leadership that is given clearly to the members, we would still find ourselves, our communities will still find themselves being vulnerable, to violence and also to the criminality that we see in this country. And then now what has to happen is that restructuring needs to be implemented. And I would love to differ with what my colleague Lirandzu has said, because if indeed there was a good relationship between the minister and the national commissioner, restructuring would have been implemented, and those resources would have been channeled down to the ground, and we strongly believe that these numbers would be showing a different picture, because that agreement was concluded in 2020. So that agreement needs to be implemented. We need to have more boots on the ground. We need to have more vehicles on the ground. We need to have more experience of police officials who are there on higher ranks, starting from brigadier, major general and lieutenant generals, who can go down there on the ground and ensure that policing is done appropriately at that level.
Lesiba, I really can't help, but I have to ask you this, because this is an issue that you keep on alluding to. The minister in public says that there is no love, in fact, there is no fight between him and his police commissioner. Lirandzu says there is nothing like that. In public, we are being told that there is no fight that is unfolding here. What makes you so adamant to say that, in fact, behind closed doors, things are not as rosy as we think they are?
We know people can act for the media, people can act in public, and that is what they are doing. That is why we even wrote to the President of the Republic to intervene in this matter, because both of them, they were appointed by him, the Honorable President. And we know clearly, because if that was not the case, restructuring would have been implemented as we speak. And that restructuring, it is being held at ransom by the minister deliberately in order to frustrate the whole process. Because we know that that restructuring would assist us further. It would assist our communities. It would assist our members. So we are so adamant with what we are saying. You are correct. Because if that was not the case, you wouldn't even have a problem in terms of restructuring when we concluded that agreement. And we wouldn't be having a problem where now in the Northern Cape, we do not have a provincial commissioner, but we are being told that everything is well, there is no crisis, there is no leadership crisis. Sisbongiwe and South Africans, policing or SAPS, it is on an autopilot. And something needs to be done. The feud between the minister and the national commissioner needs to be sorted out. That is a fact. It is factual. We know there are things that we pointed out, and we know clearly that there is no good relationship. And because we know that if the two bulls are fighting, the grass will suffer. Crime stats are showing us that now our communities are the ones who are paying a bigger price. Our members out there, they do not have even more capacity. When we look at how many police officials were killed within the period of 3 months, 32 police officials. And to train a police official, it is not a year thing that you can do. It is not something that you can do within a split of a second. So we are losing members, and also inclusive of natural attrition. So all of those issues, they need to be looked into, whereby people are removing the mask and are facing the facts that are out there, because our members are suffering, and even our communities. And it is our position as the union to say, based on this relationship that cannot be repaired, it looks like it cannot be repaired, it cannot be sorted out between the two men, and we are saying the president must intervene. And we are also saying that because of the restructuring, non-implementation, the Minister of Police needs to leave, because he's not doing what he's supposed to do as a political head in policing.
All right, Lirandzu, one of the things that the minister is saying is that, and I quote, the future is at winning the war. And is this something, though, that, the SAPS is really looking to achieve, especially when you listen to what, the South African Police Union is saying, because they're even saying that this is an organization that is on autopilot, where the two bulls at the top are fighting. And I know you say that there is no fight, but it does look like that for the minister to win this war that he talks about. A lot more needs to be done.
Whether there's a feud or not, policing still needs to happen. As Lesiba has pointed out, it's about the people of South Africa at the end of the day. And I'm going to answer your question on this score, to say that what is happening in our communities is something that the police are very much aware of. These crime stacks and previous quarters are showing us more of a campus for the police as to where do they plug in resources. I've already, adequately explained to you and your viewers about what are some of the factors that are impacting the numbers, the dwindling numbers in the police. But in the same breath, you spoke about different departments coming on board to try and also really assist the policing of this country. And when I say policing, I mean that not necessarily taking a gun and, going to take the law into your own hands. I'm saying that there are some incidents, there are some crime patterns and some crime trends that could really be stopped by efforts by community members. But over and above that, Bongiwe, we have what we call the environmental design, which is something that is a term that's bandied about. But if you really look into the heart of it, and Lesiba will also agree, as well as Michael, that these are some of the situations that make policing so difficult, where a policeman can't even see where they're going. There's no street lights, there's no road, there are no numbers on in the houses. So these are some of the things that really, even municipalities can assist in trying to curtail some of the crime numbers. But I also want to guard against, SAPU or any other union or any other South African watching this, about being alarmed about the double-digit figures that we're seeing, Bongiwe. And I want to explain it this way. And I've used fruits as an example, but clearly this is not working for Lesiba. But let me rather put it this way. We cannot look at the previous quarter of reporting and say it was a normal period in South Africa. It was not. As I've mentioned, we were under very hard lockdown. This is the very reason why we saw very high numbers of crime. But now things are back to normal. Right now we are in adjusted level 3. But in the reporting period that we have released today, we're looking at level 3, level 2, and level 1. Basically, the country was really open for business, open for other sort of economic activities, and unfortunately also criminal activities. But even though those were the instances, police were able to make headway. For example, we saw that while there were about 40 plus CIT robberies, Bongiwe, we saw the police infiltrating very dangerous gangs, some of them armed to the teeth, infiltrating these gangs, take down those plans before they could even go into the CIT robberies. Albeit we lost one of our members in one of those incidents, but we know that these criminals will do absolutely everything to get what they want. But police are pushing back on those. And Lesiba will admit and know that his members are those members that are pushing back on those gangs and those criminalities. But more than just that, we are seeing that police really have stepped up the fight against gender-based violence, which remains one of the priority crimes for the SAPS. Bongiwe, we know that we are having these gender-based violence desks, dedicated desks at police stations. There are things that have been in the pipeline for some time, but they are going to be realized, and they are being realized so that victims of sexual offences are given the utmost compassion and professionalism when they are presenting themselves at police stations. We know that there has been many of the complaints that have been put forward with regards to the SAPS. Yes, there's still more to be done, but definitely there's a political will to do that more.
Michael, I'd like to give you the final word. We're out of time. Lirandzu speaks about something very important, the issue around the infrastructure, navigating through various communities. I'm thinking of an area like Zandspruit, which your police station also services. That also poses difficulties for police officers to be able to get in, because in areas like these, there's not sufficient lighting or roads.
Most certainly that is the case. We can take an example of Zandspruit, where a vehicle can't even drive in. And for officers to go in the middle of the night on foot, armed with a torch and a firearm, is not always the safest. So that is also where community involvement comes in, and where people need to work together. I think that is probably one of the most important things, is to win this fight, we need to get residents and communities to start working with the police instead of avoiding it or not working with them. As a final word from our side, I think one of the important things that we have to focus on, we're very quick to be negative against the police as well. But I think the important thing, and we've seen it, and I think that's maybe one of the excesses as well, is we need to praise and encourage our officers when they do well. Very seldom you'll see that, and I think that is one of the important things of how communities can also get involved. But getting involved in your community, getting involved with CPF, working with the police, that is how we're going to win the fight at the end of the day with the police.
All right, thank you so much to you all for your time. I certainly do appreciate it. That was the South African Police Union National Spokesperson, Lesiba Thobakgale, Police Ministry Spokesperson Lirandzu Themba, and Michael Steyn, who is the spokesperson for Honeydew Community Policing Forum.